I think that's where you and I and people collectively, of this similar space of, let's call it mindfulness. I think that's where
Yeah,
that comes into play.
yeah, and I find it very interesting that you talk about the technology aspect, because when you read Conversations with God, he actually touches on that. And I don't want to keep going back to Conversations with God, but it was such a instrumental book in my life. It was one of the most life changing series I've ever read. But in book 4, he talks about how um, technology is progressing, but we will not be able to move forward unless human society progresses. So
Right.
we have this imbalance of technology is going to keep going forward. We're going to keep falling back, but we're not falling back. We're just being left behind by what's coming, what technology is coming. So he makes this, I wish I remembered the exact connection, but he makes this very unique and interesting connection that bridges what the difference between technology and human development should look like. And essentially, we might feel progressed, we might feel advanced because of this technology that we have, but the human itself has not advanced in thousands of years. They still have a very strong ego, essentially. And
Mm-hmm.
I think in the book 4, he makes a very great connection with that.
Well, also too, the more that we learn about our biology and things that you've learned and experienced, and other things that I've learned about what actually causes our character develop, our reactions, our illusion of choices in the world, where we end up.
Yeah,
You begin to realize more and more that this concept of free will is an illusion, unless you really need a level of awareness to truly be making a choice, because most choices that we think we're making are just reactions from other lines, other triggers,
yeah,
other tethers that have happened. So many of us are living in the past, and you speak a lot about it as far as memory. And something that I just read from Bo Lotto's book, Deviate, really really great book,
okay,
uh, and definitely someone worth looking into. He's a neuroscientist, and the book is about the brain at a neuroscience level. Is that memory was there to learn from, not live in. As far
yep,
as in the past, and most of us, we live
yep,
in the past instead of learning. And then, because you can't create a future, you can't create a presence going into the future looking behind yourself. You can use the tools, or you can learn from it, use the tools, and then make choices from there for a greater purpose and a benefit. and,
yeah,
and and I think it's about just getting that information out there. And I think that we can really use this. I think the school structure is already the structure in place to accomplish this. It's just creating a big enough influence to now start to alter what we consider school. What are we
yeah,
actually teaching, and what are we placing value on? We're in this seemingly spin cycle of chasing the rabbit, and it goes
mm-hmm,
back to like where or chasing the carrot, either or really.
yeah,
And it's like chasing it to where are we going? It's
yep,
in. And again, I'm being in business and being in finance. It can sound like I'm contradicting myself. It you know it's There's a difference between striving to, at least in the capitalistic economy we have today, right? There's a difference between building yourself up, building a financial foundation, accumulating wealth, and then there's these upper limits of just excess, like extreme excess. And I think when it comes down to the economy and building wealth and having money,
mm,
it's about keeping the cycle perpetuating, not
yep,
about this seemingly hoarding of, how it's not about how much can you get to essentially die with. to what I'm understanding now about money and the value it really has is it gives you an influence. And now it's how are you
Yep.
choosing to use that influence? You know, it's great if you're very successful and let's say you're a billionaire. That's awesome. I'm not taking that away. I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't have that much money. Now the question is, okay, now what can you do with that value you have? What influence can you make? What can you contribute back?
You actually bring up two very good points in that segment. And I did want to touch on both. One was the mind aspect. And I think that's one thing that the education system focuses on is the mind aspect of everything. Two, and when we connect human design into this, we try to inform people that you have more than one brain. Like, it's not all up here. Like, you're not supposed to live your life through your mind. You're supposed to live your life through your body. And through your body, you have your stomach, you have your mind, you have your pelvis, you have your heart. So those are 3, 4, if you want to count the pelvis, different types of brain, different types of energy centers that you can make connection decisions, move forward. And then 2, the financial aspect of it. And it's very funny that you bring that up, because last week I had a call with my business partner and 2 other friends. We got on the call and we're looking at the economy, the industries right now. And we're like, this is a great time to transition into doing something to accumulate that wealth and becoming an influence. So we have all these ideas, we have all these things that we want to do, but you really know the power is having the income or the abundance of finance or money, whatever you want to consider abundance, but having that money to be able to influence and give back to others and help others explore and be able to utilize any of your financial wealth to help make a change, make a difference, essentially. And I think that's actually one of the most important things a lot of people forget nowadays. They see that they have, excuse me, they see that their bank accounts got, for instance, $1,200, and they take that $1,200 and they go satisfy themselves with shoes or shirts or whatever it may be. But they don't look at it as, I have $1,200. How can I turn this into 24? How can I turn this into 12? How can I turn this 12,000 into helping my mama and my grandfather? How can I take this 12,000 to go to somebody completely random on the street that's living day to day on the street and getting them a haircut or bringing them into a home or getting them a job? And I think that's a lot of what society misses nowadays is money isn't necessarily bad. Money is a great influence when you have it, but the way you use it can be bad.
Yeah. And this goes in another thing. So this is one of the first things I really started learning as far as the trying to understand why things are the way they are financially, why so many people don't utilize the tools that are open and available for them. And what I really discovered is the difference between those that accumulate wealth and those that essentially stay poor is a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say poor, you know, I don't mean the, you know, surviving, homeless. I mean, there's a poor mentality that keeps people working week by week by week. And then there's a misconception that money solves that. Well, I'll tell you what, there's people that make 100, 200, 400, 500,000 a year with a poor mindset. And those people right now are probably struggling because we're programmed. There's so much programming that's going on in the background that people are plugged into. And it's why people will take that $1,200 and spend it foolishly. We're programmed to be consumers. We're programmed to run on that treadmill and reach for the carrot and just keep going. And that's what a lot of our school system teaches as well. That's what we're set up to do. We don't have like, for example, this is something that astounds me. Today, we have the means on this planet to take care of every single person. Nobody has to be dying of hunger. You know, like basic necessities can be met. No one has to be poor. There's enough money in the world. There's far more wealth in the world than is even needed if people were to have it. And where I think where a lot of this gets hung up is it stalls out on people that accumulate and then don't go back into the cycle. There's this like storage, there's this hoarding, and it goes back to, what are you doing with it? I'm not taking, listen, it's a lot to build a business. Yeah. You and I both know that. I take nothing away, and there's a mindset there too. Some people are just lazy. Some people are not utilizing the fundamentals. And again, that goes back to we're not taught that. I'm not taking anything away from anyone that has achieved greatness. That's awesome. Now you've
Yeah.
achieved that level. I think the component that we miss is that there's a sense of responsibility now. There's a sense of influence and a value you have. Now, what are you doing? You know, like what more can you ask for out of life? And I don't think that this needs to be forced, because there are generous people that there are generous, wealthy individuals. There's, you know, you have Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and a bunch of other billionaires that have that agreement to distribute their wealth when they pass. However, there's not enough of that. And just like how they have that agreement, it didn't have to be forced. Like the government didn't have to like overly tax them. And this is something I feel very strongly about, is we don't need to force people. We don't need to keep giving out fish to people. We need to teach people how to fish. And we need, as we teach ourselves and about awareness and growing consciously and everything that you and I are both doing and many others around the world, it becomes natural. You know, it's just a natural state, and you're going to want
people will go at their own speed.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very wise point. And to connect back into human design, we also try to emphasize that too as well, that don't worry if you're not who everyone else is. You will have your time. You will go through your process at your own speed. You will, and that also goes to book 4, Conversations with God. He talks about the world will wake up one at a time, because we're all connected universally. We're all spiritually, mentally connected. We're all, by us waking up and doing our job, and not necessarily doing our job, but exploring ourselves, we are subconsciously inspiring other to do that same situation, go through that same process, because they see our self-development, they see us doing what we're doing, and they start to question not only themselves, but their process. They're starting to see other people, not just me and you, but maybe their friend that they thought would never be an entrepreneur, or a friend that would never be meditating, or a friend that would never be exercising, or whatever it may be. And those people start to begin questioning their processes. And I think forcing things has been one of the reasons why we are where we are, why this world is in this position, because those at the top who seamlessly know that their power and their influence, and introducing the media and the social media, they really understand their influence, and having people, not even like me, not even like you, but people that are talking like this, people that are talking about things that matter about yourself, or your mental health, or your daily processes, it begins to kind of penetrate that forced conditioning that we're talking about here. And we're starting to see universally that people are slowly waking up. And if you kind of just take a meta-analysis of this, not only did when we first started this conversation, you were talking about how your process, how you ended up where you are in the last 5 years, which is very kind of similar to my process. I've seen many other people have that same process within the last 10 years. This just process of making connections, waking up, and understanding. And that could be the planet doing that. Mother Earth could be doing, just tipping people off through the universal consciousness, or it could be the minute influence that you think you might not have, but you do have, that's just rapidly spreading out through the world. And I think it's as doomsday as this whole pandemic sounds, I think that we have a bright future, and I think a lot of things are happening, not only within communities, not only within society, not only within countries, but within people themselves. And I think, I don't know where I was going to go with this, but I think it's a beautiful thing seeing that this world is starting to wake up and start making connections and seeing people become influenced.
Yeah, I agree. And where I think our maybe not the next step, a step that needs to happen in the short term is to start creating conscious leaders. So, you know, have conscious individuals that are in these business roles or in these political roles, because
Yep.
again, we point the blame at the wrong, like we blame illusionary systems like, oh, the government's bad. No, the government is a system set up.
Yep.
It's the players that you put in those places that can cause that influence, whether it be for or against the whole. And
Yeah.
I think it's time, like we have to start getting people that have a higher level of mindfulness to, you know, not just give a good speech about what sounds good, but then actually act upon it. And I think I think also too, developing a world where we have more of an inquiry, more of a feedback, more where the public, so to speak, actually has a voice in with
Yes.
government. You know, not making these laws and rules and regulations without any conferring, you know, especially now with technology, how hard it would be to set up a survey or a Survey Monkey or a Google Docs or whatever, where we could just log in and say, you know, what do you guys think about this? Or how important is not just a couple people that might show up to have the day off to voice it, but we have access now to have more people actually have an input where you can get a more accurate poll about what is it, us, the people in general, what is it we actually do care about, and then start discussing these topics and find these middle grounds. And you said it just a little bit ago too, there's been an abundance of force, and you can't force it. I personally figure that I learned that early on is all we can do is shine a light, all we can do is guide and show a brighter direction, and then it's up to others whether or not they want to take a look. And what I found is, and I think you'll agree, is once you start walking, once you experience these expanded levels, let's call it, I find it, I would argue impossible. However, I'm only a sample size of one. I would say it's impossible to go back or to desire to want to go back. It just doesn't make sense. And I had a conversation with a friend about this, where how they were perceiving I was now, or because of my level of ability to have such awareness over my emotions, which has really eliminated much of my emotion. Not that I'm emotionless, however, there's just less reactions. There's less things to get over emotional from, and
more control.
Right. And what I said to that is, you can't say to me what state you would prefer to be in until you actually get to a certain state, and then you have a choice on where you want to be. And where my path has gone from, I've been in a state of heightened emotion and, you know, a lot of sadness and hurt and like internal conflict, and I've been there. And then I experienced getting here, and 10 out of 10 times I'm here now because I choose to be here. I don't want to go back here. That's a choice. It's just a level of peace that I don't believe anyone who would acquire that would then make a choice to go back. I think there's this lie we tell ourselves, because again, it goes back to how society's propped up. There's this lie we tell ourselves that we need this to accomplish. We need this to push us, because every story is about this battle and overcoming, and there's got to be this trauma and this negativity. And I don't believe that. I believe that we can have a prosperous, positive society with goals and objectives and you know, mission statements for ourselves, and we can accomplish great things without running from the fire any longer.
That's a very good point. And before we digress, because I know we're about to eat soon, I wanted to touch point on when you were talking about the government and putting the people in place. I don't know if you studied anything about Graham Hancock, but he talks a point where he says, to become a politician, you must go through 12 psychedelic trips, either mushrooms or ayahuasca, before you become a politician. That's the only way you can qualify. And that was because I also believe in those safely medicinal plants can also help lead us and make connections. I know personally it's exposed my ego tremendously when I've practiced those different types of psychedelic plants. And I've noticed a lot of things, conditions that I've broken, a lot of, I guess you could say, flaws or attitudes that I've had in the past. It's just opened my eyes to. And Graham Hancock said that, and I was like, oh my God, yes, every politician should trip 12 times before they become anything of a leader, because you truly understand emotion, you understand ego, and it's an eye-opening experience that I think not necessarily everyone needs to go through, but I think it's worth experiencing if you want, or if you think you can.
I think what I would take from that is that there should be, or it would work better for there to be a system of some sort
Yes.
that politicians should go through to, you know, to create a well-roundedness about them. And I agree. You know, to narrow down if that's the way to go, or you know, what it could be, that's one of those kind of up in the air. I don't disagree to what you're saying. I do believe that
and that's not necessarily the answer. I think it's just a plus, and I don't think it's what we should focus on. But I do think it's like when Graham Hancock said that, I was like, oh, that's a very good point. You learn so much in those experiences.
Yeah, well, that's you know, something else as far as having politicians have more of a relatability is, I feel that if you're a public official, I feel that their salary should also be the median salary of the population they're there for, whether, you know, whatever county, whatever city, whatever your position, like that should be a no-brainer. Like if you really want to be there for the people and you're getting paid by the people, then you should have the average salary. And then it's like it's kind of like a commission thing, which, you know, is something that I've learned is a lot of people see that negatively. However, it's not, because it creates an interest, right? So if
that's a very good point. Wow. Ooh, okay. And then it inspires competition and innovation. That's
right.
That's a great
now
point.
If you know that your salary is not a set number, however, it's a calculation of the median salary of your community, well, don't you have an incentive now to raise the salary to help? Right. Because if you help them, you help you. It creates a win-win scenario. And if we can cultivate more of that, I mean, we have the tools. This is what I mean. Like it's, at least for myself, I've learned so much that it's like bashing my head against the wall sometimes. Like we have it. We have the tools. But we're fumbling around with them like a 3-year-old at the beach. Like we have what we need. How come we're not using it?
Yeah. That's a great point. I'm going to be pondering on that for the rest of the night. Restructuring government.
I thought of that like a couple months ago, and it was like one of those things I wanted to write down, because I truly felt that was a realistic possibility that could be implemented.
It's logical.
And that's it. Just
that makes sense. But to kind of be the devil's advocate, there would be very poor areas, because technically there wouldn't be enough money. Say every politician made their wealth with their community so high, what money would we have to be able to disperse? Everybody would essentially be rich. I feel like that would be counterintuitive in a sense, but based on that would be a different day or a different talk. But I did kind of want to wrap up. What got you into just Zoom calling people?
I think the pandemic, really, I think that's what, it was one of those things where I was using it and I knew I wanted to do video content. And I actually did a couple videos where the goal was to create a video that correlated with every post, so that I can have more of a expanded explanation of that nature. So I recorded a couple. I wasn't happy with them. It didn't feel right. And then it just clicked to me that when I'm talking with people, so much more comes out and it creates a better narrative. It gives because I'm only speaking from my perspective or various perspectives I can look through. However, when I have someone else now, I can have someone that's going to play devil's advocate or going to say, hey, but have you thought about it this way? Just not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing, but asking the question for the sake of asking the question.
Yeah.
And the organicness of the conversations and what balloons from them, I thought, well, that's where the value comes from. So then my mind quickly was like, oh, that's what Joe Rogan does. And I'm thinking, well, I'm doing Zoom. Why don't, even though I don't have like a studio, a place to talk in person, why don't I just record the Zoom calls? And so that all kind of, again, it's like I had all the pieces, and then they finally, through orbit, they just lined up, and it was like, I know where my next step is now for the video content I want to do. And here we are.
That's awesome. How many do you usually do a day?